Oh, hi, there you are. Welcome to the workshop. If you're new here, my name is Greg. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I take this pile of lumber and turn it into the best looking tote rack ever. You know what? Never mind. I think I've seen that one. But what I am going to do is show you how I take this pile of lumber and turn it into the most unique tote rack ever. For some reason, the 27-gallon tote has become the standard bearer for the majority of tote racks that are out there. And that's fine. I've done that. And I haven't even shown you that. So what I decided to do is do something a little different. I'm going to combine 36 17-gallon totes with 22 6.5-quart totes and make the most unique tote rack ever. So with that said, once I'm done, I'm out of the tote rack business, but not for the reasons you may think, only because I've met my storage needs. I have a shipping container and I need to organize it, and this will do that perfectly. So sit back, relax, and I'm going to show you how I make the most unique tote rack ever. And at the end, I have a little treat for you. See you when we get there. When opportunity collides with a pre-existing idea, I suggest you seize the moment. And when Big Orange was practically giving these away, I decided to go back to my computer and finish the thought that I had. Not that I designed anything on my computer, that's just pretty much where I kept my craft paper. So I designed a rack that I needed for my storage container, and then I set to work. So with my design set, I started to make spacers. On a build like this, when you're going to have repeatable cuts, the best thing to do is make some templates, get your cuts down, make sure that everything is even, and make sure everything is square. So I went to my old trusty miter saw, which has since been retired. Kind of miss her already, but she served well. But I digress. So I made some templates, and then I came back, did a layout of the design that I had drawn up, marked my templates, and then proceeded to move forward. So after I did a mock-up of what I wanted or what I thought I wanted, trust me, everything evolves, I set to work. I had some 2x6s set around from a previous job. What this did is it allowed me to make my 1.5 by 1.5 perfectly square. Now with the first steps out of the way, the first piece is milled. As we can see, they're not perfect. They did come from Big Orange, but we can work with that. At the time of my design, I set these at 27 inches. Now these are the rails that the large totes are going to ride on. But since I'm combining 17-gallon totes with 6.5-quart totes, I also have 1 inch by 3/4 inch rails that I'm going to be making as well. And they too will be 27 inches, at least at this point. So I repeat this step until I get the desired amount that I need. And then I put a bevel on the end. If you can do 45, why not 50? Aww. A lot of time. And more times. So that's the first step out of the way. But with that, we do have to pre-drill holes. Guess how many? We have a winner. But that's one of the necessary evils. And of course, even though they've been cut and drilled, we have to plane them. I learned from my first experience that the tighter and cleaner and neater you make your wood, the tighter your rack will be. And they did come out nice. So I have 72 1.5 by 1.5, and they needed to be dressed up. I found it best to either paint or stain them, if that's what you're going to do, prior to assembly. And this was quite the endeavor. It was fun. Let's watch. I like the fact that a little color makes the rack pop a little bit. It just looks really nice. Along with adding to the longevity. And that was at real time. After you've done this a few times, you do get into a rhythm. And we're done. So at this point, the pieces were hung out to dry. The protection I put on there will just make them last that much longer. And then it's back to the lab. So between the 1.75 and the 1.5 squared, it's time to get back to work. So I went back to my plan just to double check a few measurements, and it's time to get back to work. I decided to tighten up some of my tolerances. Everything here is plus or minus, plus or minus. You can make these as tight as you want to. So at this point, I decided to go to 26 7/8 instead of 27 inches. Because why not? Every little bit helps. And this also did allow me to go from 22 6.5-quart totes to 24. But now it's time to grab those 2x4s off the rack and start milling those for my rails. Of course, we have to send them to the planer, get them cleaned up on all sides. Again, at this point, I am where I would like my builds to look a certain way. I just want them to look clean, even though they're for the shop. The things you practice when you build shop material just translates to future builds, no matter what you're doing. So we planed these on all 4 sides, get them cleaned up, and they came out very nice. And again, back to the lab to get them cut to size. For these, we're going to go at 85 inches. So we got 16 2x4s cut to 85 inches. And that will give the rack a total height of 88 inches before putting on wheels. So we cut those 16 and move on to our next part. And yes, we did plane them and we did cut them, but again, on this particular build, I'm going for an aesthetic. I want it to look very nice and very clean, so we are going to sand these in addition to putting a little color on them. And again, this just adds to the longevity and also to the look. And this is also not very tedious. It goes very quickly. But again, after having done this a couple of times, it is definitely better to do any stain or paint prior to assembly. Which gave me reason to go back to my plans. Look at my tolerances, double check my numbers. I put final on there. Is anything ever final? We shall see. But we're moving forward. So at assembly time, this is where the spacers come in, and you see how quickly this goes. You get a bit of a rhythm, Parts are already stained. All you're doing is assembling and setting aside. So these are the outside rails where they're just done on one side. And based on my design, I have 4 rails. They're going to be double-sided, and those are for the 17-gallon totes. And then I have 2 that are going to be a combination. One side is going to be for the 17-gallon totes, and the other side will house the 6.5-quart totes. And that's why there's 2 separate types of rails being placed on this particular one. But again, this is where the templates come in handy. Because you have competing sizes, you have to make sure everything is lined up and straight and that your tolerances are tight. And this is the point where I forgot we went from 22 to 24 6.5-quart totes. Please like and subscribe. Help me beat the algorithm. I appreciate you. So with those fully assembled, they're set out just so that I can double check the alignment. And of course, because the graph paper made it so, they were perfect. As was my miter saw. So at this point, I started to assemble the bottom floor portion. I'm going to do things a little differently this time. Usually I build these with the floor open. This time I'm going to make it so that when you look inside, when you place the totes inside, there's actually a bottom to it this time. So I had to pull out the pocket holes and start assembly. So what I did was I made a frame, squared it up, make sure everything was lined up, and I took some hardboard and made a floor for the bottom, and came out pretty nice. And again, this is just for aesthetics. It was part of the design. I wanted to make this a little nicer than anything else I had built. And this was going to take it to the next level. And yes, it's assembly time. So the one thing about this rack, this is nearly 11 feet wide. As you can see right here. Now the problem with working by yourself is that you're working by yourself. So this is a monster to try to handle and maneuver, but clamps came in handy. So I set this on the original workbench and I clamped everything down, got everything lined up, and I started the assembly process all by myself. And this is going to come back to bite me later, trust me. So in this particular build, I'm going to have 8 uprights, the 2 outer, the 4 inners on both sides, and the 2 that have the combination for the 6.5-quart totes and the 17-gallon totes. So I go about assembling the uprights based on the templates that I designed earlier, and it actually goes fairly quickly. Except right here. Yes, I mismeasured. I think I was off by a ½ inch or so. But one thing I did on this particular build is I did not cut the final dimensions of the floor. I left it long, actually just so that I could adjust. Again, I was playing with my tolerances on this one. There we go. So once that hurdle was cleared, we proceeded. The spacing on all the other totes was fine. Worked my way down. Made it down to our final upright. And at this point, this is when I could cut off the edge. So we get this all squared up. And as you can see, when it stands up, there will be a floor on the bottom when you look into it, and what you're looking at right now is underneath the rack. So we spent a little time lining that up, making sure it's perfect and square, because we have to do the same thing to the top once we get this on the ground. Again, working by yourself, clamps are your best friend. So that it doesn't collapse when I take it off of the work table, I put a temporary 2x4 across it. And then I started the heavy lifting, literally. And this is where things go south. So again, working by yourself, trying to get a heavy rack on the floor, it's no easy task. But I was up to it. We did take a casualty. We lost the original workbench in the process. But the show must go on. So as I did with the bottom, I constructed a top with the same hardboard, 2x4s, hardboard, pocket holes, nearly 11 feet long. And this too, I got up by myself, got on a ladder, assembled it, made sure that everything was square, used my templates, my corrected template for the 6.5-quart totes, made sure that everything was perfect. As you can see, did a little quick test fit, stuck a tote in there, made sure that it fit correctly, and yes, it did. So at this point, we're nearly 8 feet in height, nearly 11 feet in width, and 26.78 inches in depth. As you can see right there, that's the floor I was speaking of, so that you don't just see the ground below the last tote. And in this particular section, I know in my prior build, I did it, a lot of people do it, they put the flat L bracket on the corners. I am going to recommend that we get away from those. They don't add as much structure and support as these do. These rigid tie angles, these are great. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just letting you know that I use them, and they were very, very supportive in holding things square and tight, and gave a lot more support than a flat L bracket. They are a little more costly, but depending on your build and where you're going to put this and how much weight you're going to put on it, it's worth it. And of course, there were changes to be made. While I was building this, I looked at where the 6.5-quart totes were going to be, and I felt that it needed a back. And of course, I had a couple of pieces of cedar sitting around, so I made a 2-piece panel, planed it, stained it, and set it into place, and it came out very nice. I also had this from a prior project that you'll see shortly, and I decided to use it to put behind the 17-gallon quarts. I didn't want to enclose the entire thing, but I did want to keep the cedar theme and give it something to bump up against when you push the tote into. And that just happened to work out perfectly, so I didn't have to waste the piece. And these are just further details that I'm putting in. Again, I wanted this to present well, so I enclosed the sides with some hardboard. And at this point, I wanted to load it up, see what she looked like. She was done. Now this was actually quite enjoyable, loading it up, having it take its final look, seeing the design come to fruition. Again, we have 36 17-gallon totes and 24 6.5-gallon totes. And for reference, I'm 6 feet, 225, and this thing is enormous. Again, for the people that love the stats. And she came out quite well. Looks great. So that concludes the most unique tote rack build that I've been a part of. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. I was glad I was able to get some color onto the rack itself. I enjoy utilizing the cleared totes. I enjoyed mostly that I was able to get those while they were on sale. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. But you know what? Since you stayed this far, I got a bonus for you. Come on, let's go. Real quick, real quick. Well, folks, I may or may not have been keeping a secret. It's nothing bad, just something I didn't film. Until now. No, not that. Well, thanks for sticking around for the bonus round. This is my biggest and most well-kept secret. I built this storage rack, but I didn't film it. Why, you might ask? Because I'd already done that. But what I did was I built 3 storage racks, tied them together, and in my next video, I'm going to show you some modifications that I'm going to be making to this rack. But for now, I have your customary 27-gallon totes. I had room for the 6.5-quart totes. I have the large 77-gallon tote. And again, 3 racks tied together, mounted to the wall. I have custom dollies, more 6.5-quart totes. And in my next video, I'm going to focus on a feature that you haven't seen on a rack like this, and especially not one of this size. So thanks for sticking around, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now get out of here. Go build something.